My wife once joked that she and her mom were a package deal. At the time, I thought it was cute. Now I know she meant it literally. Down to the paperwork on my house. My name's Caleb Anderson. I'm 34, a project manager for a construction firm in Ohio. 3 years ago, I married Melissa, 31, a dental hygienist who could light up a room just by laughing. She came from a close, opinionated family, especially her mom, Patricia Lane, a retired realtor who still introduced herself as a property professional. Before I met Melissa, I bought a small 2-story house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just something I'd saved for since my 20s. I paid the mortgage off early, 7 years of extra shifts and ramen dinners. That deed had only my name on it, and signing that final payment felt like crossing a finish line no one else could claim. When Melissa moved in after the wedding, we decided not to rush combining finances. She had student loans, I had investments, I paid property taxes and maintenance. She handled groceries and utilities. It felt balanced, until Patricia started helping. Patricia came over constantly. "You know, dear," she'd say, tapping the countertop, "a house isn't really secure unless it's protected by both partners." I'd smile politely and change the subject. Melissa would laugh it off. Mom's just being mom. But those comments came more often. Last spring, Melissa suggested we refinance to free up cash for renovations. I wasn't thrilled, but I listened. Then she said something that stuck. Mom already talked to her friend at the title office. She said it'll be easy to add both our names, not just hers, her mom's too. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Why would your mom be on our house?" Melissa shrugged. "She helped us with design advice, and she said co-ownership can help with inheritance taxes someday." The way she said helped us, like giving color opinions equaled equity, made my stomach tighten. Still, I didn't fight. I figured it was idle talk. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived from a title service company I'd never contacted. Inside was a draft deed transfer labeled Preliminary Ownership Adjustment. 3 names were listed: Caleb Anderson, Melissa Anderson, Patricia Lane. I called the number on the letter. A receptionist said, "Yes, Mr. Anderson, we received your wife's authorization. We just need your digital signature to finalize the title update." I hung up so fast my phone nearly cracked. Authorization? I hadn't signed a thing. When Melissa got home, I set the papers on the table. "Care to explain this?" She blinked like she didn't recognize them. "Oh, Mom said she'd handle the preliminary stuff, just in case we move forward." "Preliminary?" "It literally lists her as an owner." Melissa rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. It's not binding until you sign." "That's not the point," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Why are you and your mother preparing to split my property 3 ways? Her tone sharpened. "Our property, Caleb. We're married." "Married doesn't mean you can add signatures behind my back." She crossed her arms. "You always make it about control. Mom was just helping with paperwork. You should be grateful she knows what she's doing." Grateful. That word burned. That night, I pulled the house deed from my safe, my name alone, proof of years of sacrifice. I slid it into a lockbox and hid it in my truck. The next morning, I called my buddy Derek, a real estate attorney. When I sent him the documents, he whistled through the phone. "Bro, this isn't preliminary. If you'd e-signed, they could have recorded it. Instant ownership change." He advised me to freeze any title activity and set alerts with the county clerk's office. I did both before lunch. That evening, Patricia dropped by to talk logistics. She arrived with a binder full of property forms and that realtor smile, the kind that looks professional but hungry. "Caleb," she said, "I know this seems sudden, but family assets need protection. If something happened to you, Melissa and I could lose the house. If something happened to me," I said evenly, "the will covers that. It doesn't require your signature on my deed." Patricia's smile stiffened. "You're being defensive. You should want your wife's family secure." I looked her straight in the eye. "My wife, yes. Her mother, no." Melissa stood behind her, silent. The air was thick enough to slice. Patricia gathered her papers like a disappointed teacher. "Think about it, dear. It's just smart planning." Then she left without another word. When the door closed, Melissa snapped. "You embarrassed her." "She was only trying to help." "Help with what? Taking partial ownership?" She glared. "This attitude is why she doesn't like you sometimes." "Then she's going to like me even less soon," I muttered. Because by the next morning, I had a plan. and a dinner reservation she'd never forget. Dinner reservations at Oak and Vine were usually for anniversaries, proposals, or peace treaties. I'd chosen it for something closer to an ambush. Melissa loved that place. White tablecloths, expensive wine, dim lighting that made every argument sound civilized. I told her to dress nice because I wanted to talk about the house calmly. She seemed relieved, maybe even smug. "Good," she said. "We can finally get on the same page." But what she didn't know was that I had already been to a notary that morning with Derek. We'd drawn up 2 documents, one protecting my deed from unauthorized transfers, and another, a postnup. The papers were folded neatly inside a brown envelope in my jacket pocket. When we sat down, Melissa reached for the menu, but I didn't pick mine up. "Before we order," I said, sliding the envelope across the table, "I need you to read something." She frowned. "What's this?" "Protection," I said. "For both of us." She opened it, skimmed the first page, and her eyebrows knit together. "A post-nuptial agreement? What is this supposed to mean?" "It means what it says," I replied calmly. "We clarify financial boundaries. The house stays in my name. Any future properties, investments, or assets we build together, those are shared. But what I owned before our marriage remains mine. Permanently." She let out a short laugh, sharp, nervous. "You can't be serious. This is humiliating." "What's humiliating," I said, "is you and your mother filing ownership paperwork without telling me." Her smile faltered. "That wasn't—" "Don't lie, Melissa." I called the title company. "They said you authorized it." Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the folder. "Mom just thought—" "Stop saying Mom. I'm talking to you." The waitress appeared with water, sensing the tension, then vanished just as quickly. The restaurant's soft music suddenly felt like static. "Caleb," she whispered, "you're overreacting." "We were just trying to be smart. Smart would have been asking me first." She looked away, jaw tightening. "So what happens if I don't sign this?" I leaned forward. "Then we both know what that means." The words landed heavy between us. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Silence did the work for me. Her eyes glistened, but it wasn't sadness. It was anger, the kind that comes from losing control. "You think I'm some kind of gold digger?" "I think you're being led by someone who cares more about deeds than your marriage," I said. "And you're letting her." She pushed her chair back slightly. "You're unbelievable." "No," I said. "I'm finally paying attention." We sat there in thick silence. The envelope stayed between us like a third person at the table, quiet, unyielding, watching. After a long pause, Melissa reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. She typed furiously, screen glowing in the candlelight. I caught a glimpse of the contact name, Mom. "Tell Patricia she doesn't need to call me," I said evenly. "If she wants legal advice, she can talk to my attorney directly." Her eyes widened. "You got a lawyer involved?" "After you got a title company involved," I said. That shut her up. Dinner ended without food. We left in silence, walking to separate sides of the parking lot. She drove home first. I stayed in my truck for 10 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel until the tremors stopped. When I finally walked through the front door, Patricia was there, sitting on my couch, holding a glass of wine like she owned the place. Melissa must have called her right after leaving the restaurant. "Evening," Patricia said coolly. "Melissa told me you're making a mistake." "We're family, Caleb. You're treating us like strangers." I took off my jacket slowly. "You're not on my insurance. You're not on my taxes. You don't get to be on my deed." She smirked, tilting her head. "You know, legally, you can't disinherit your spouse. Maybe it's time you learn how marriage actually works." I walked to the counter, opened a drawer, and pulled out a thin folder. The notary stamped postnup and a certified letter from my lawyer. I placed both on the coffee table between us. "You're right," I said. "So I made sure to learn everything." She hesitated, eyes scanning the letterhead. For the first time since I'd met her, Patricia didn't have a comeback ready. "From now on," I said, "you don't discuss property, money, or legal matters with me directly. You go through counsel. You set one more meeting behind my back, and I'll have restraining paperwork drafted by Monday." Melissa stood frozen in the hallway, her face pale. "You'd really do that?" "I already did," I said, pointing to the envelope. Patricia rose, still trying to maintain dignity. "You're making a scene over nothing. Then nothing should be easy to walk away from, I replied. She left without another word, heels clicking across the floor like punctuation. Melissa followed her to the driveway, shouting something I couldn't make out. I heard the car door slam, the engine start, then silence. When Melissa came back in, her eyes were red. "You humiliated my mother. She tried to steal from me," I said. I simply turned on the lights. She stood there for a long time, hands shaking, lips pressed together. "You really don't trust me, do you?" I looked her in the eye. I did. Right up until you proved I shouldn't. That night, she slept in the guest room. I didn't try to stop her. I just lay in bed, listening to the sound of rain on the windows, wondering when exactly our marriage had turned into a business negotiation. But I also knew this wasn't over, because Patricia Lane was the kind of woman who never accepted the word no, especially when she thought she deserved your yes. And I had a feeling she wasn't done trying to get her signature on something that didn't belong to her. 3 weeks of silence. That's how long Patricia kept her distance before launching her next move. I should have known she wouldn't let go quietly. It started with a letter from the county assessor's office, a property ownership inquiry. My heart dropped when I saw her name listed again, this time under potential joint interest review. Derek told me it was a scare tactic. "She probably tried to file something informally and got flagged," he said. "Don't panic. Just document everything." Still, the idea that she was testing the system again made my blood run cold. I started keeping a binder, emails, certified letters, time-stamped copies of every notice. If Patricia wanted to play chess, I'd show her what checkmate looked like. Melissa was distant, avoiding eye contact most days. She still slept in the guest room. Once, I heard her crying softly at night, but I didn't know if it was regret or resentment. The tension in the house was like static, quiet, constant, impossible to ignore. One Sunday morning, she came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. "Mom says you're being cruel," she said flatly. "Mom's still calling?" I asked. "She's just worried." "You're freezing her out." "She's not my relative," I said, keeping my tone calm. "And she's not welcome in my business anymore." Melissa crossed her arms. "You made her feel like a criminal." "She acted like one." Her eyes flashed. "You're making everything about money." I turned to face her. "No, you made it about money when you tried to add someone to my deed." For a second, I thought she might actually apologize, but she just shook her head and whispered, "You're impossible," before walking away. That night, I got an email from Patricia herself. It was long, self-righteous, and condescending, a masterclass in manipulation. "Caleb, it's a shame things have escalated like this. I was only trying to ensure my daughter and grandchildren have security if something happens to you. You've misunderstood my intentions, and quite frankly, your paranoia is making things worse for everyone." She ended it with a veiled threat. "You'll regret pushing family away when you realize paperwork can't keep you warm at night." I forwarded the email to Derek. His reply came 5 minutes later. "Perfect. That's harassment. Let's use it." The next day, my lawyer sent Patricia a cease and desist letter, legal, professional, cold as steel. Any future contact regarding property or finances would be considered harassment and grounds for a restraining order. That night, Melissa stormed into the living room holding her phone. "Did you really send my mother a legal notice?" "Yes. She's heartbroken. She's manipulative," I said, "and I'm done playing defense." She stood there trembling, half from anger, half from realization. "So that's it? You're cutting her off?" "I'm protecting what's mine." Melissa stared at me for a long time, then her shoulders slumped. "You've changed." "No," I said quietly. "I just stopped pretending not to notice what you were doing." She didn't answer. She just walked out the door, slamming it hard enough to rattle the windows. The next morning, her side of the closet was empty. A note sat on the counter. "You chose control over family. Don't contact me until you're ready to fix this." I folded it once and dropped it into the binder with the rest of the evidence. Weeks turned into months. The legal alerts went quiet. The house felt colder but calmer. No more shadow negotiations, no more secret plans. Just me, the silence, and the smell of sawdust from weekend projects I actually enjoyed finishing. Then, about 4 months later, Melissa showed up unannounced. She looked tired, smaller somehow. "Mom's in Florida now," she said. "She got a condo. Said she's done meddling." "That's good for everyone," I said. She hesitated. "I've been thinking about us." I waited. I was wrong, she said finally. About everything. Mom doesn't stop when she gets an idea in her head. I thought I was protecting us, but I was just letting her run my marriage. I'm sorry, her voice cracked on that last word. I don't hate you, I said. But I can't live waiting for the next signature you don't tell me about. Tears filled her eyes. Is there any way back? Maybe, I said. But it has to start with honesty, not paperwork. She nodded slowly, then looked around the living room, the same house she'd almost signed away. You've kept it beautiful, she whispered. Yeah, I said, because I finally remembered it's mine. When she left, I didn't feel anger or victory, just peace. 6 months later, the divorce finalized quietly. We split our finances cleanly. She took her car, her savings, and moved into a small apartment across town. Patricia never reached out again. Sometimes I drive past that restaurant, Oak and Vine, and think about that envelope between us. The way it ended wasn't loud, it was simply inevitable. People online always talk about red flags. The truth is, flags don't start red. They start small and harmless, like jokes about being a package deal. You just don't notice the color changing until it's too late. If you're ever with someone who lets their parents steer your marriage, remember this. You can't build a partnership on borrowed permission. And when someone tries to put their name on something you built alone, walk away before they start writing.